The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs, recognizing first responders and other deserving individuals in our community. Friday mornings at 8:30 on News Talk KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 5:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by Logan Dental Associates. In their current exhibit, Fields of Labor and Recovery, a photographic portrait of Utah from the Great Depression to World War II, 1936 to 1942, the Brigham City Museum of Art and History highlights images of Utah from a bygone era. Tasked with capturing the landscape and people of Utah for a national audience, the photographers did not always focus on individual identifications. Many of the images by Russell Lee, such as Mountains Dryland Farm, Cache County, Utah, and Mormon Farmer, Box Elder County, Utah, provide tantalizing but non-specific clues about the local subjects. This curated by Dr. James Swenson, Associate Professor of Art History at BYU, is part of a larger project that will include the upcoming publication of a book on the photographers and their work throughout the state. According to a press release, the museum is looking for local insight to help Dr. Swenson add more context to the understanding of these photos. They are asking anyone who may have knowledge to help identify these anonymous subjects. And please come and see the images on display through January 28th, or to contact the museum at 435-226-1439. KVNU News Time is 5:06. KVNU weather for tonight. Rain and snow in the forecast tonight. And if during the time it is going to be snowing, could see an inch accumulation, and then snow to start off the day tomorrow, changing over to rain. But before that happens, we could see another inch, so possibility of 2 inches of snow out of the storm. Overnight low tonight is going to be around 30, and then high tomorrow in the low 40s. It's been to 32. Right now it's 31 at KVNU. KVNU weather is brought to you by Northern Steel Buildings. Steel is stronger, more flexible, and more dependable than wood, masonry, and concrete. See Northern Steel Buildings work online at northernsteelbuilding.com.
My name is Dr. Brandon Prevey, and I love being a dentist. I work with Drs. Curtis Taylor, Anthony Larson, and Paul Harris. When people ask where our office is, I actually have 2 answers. First, I spend part of the week at Logan Dental Associates, and then second, I spend the other part at Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond. Both locations are a full-service dental office and can take care of everyone in the family. Call or go online and make your appointment with the offices most convenient for you. Logan Dental Associates in Logan or Cherry Creek Dental in Richmond.
KVNU News Time is 5:08. The suspect in the shooting death of a professional bull rider killed in Utah has been arrested by police in Texas. She was initially released after her arrest in Salt Lake City. Officers with the Salt Lake City Police Department reported that the suspect in the case, 22-year-old LaShawn Denise Bagley, was arrested in regards to this case for a second time on January 6, 2023, by an outside agency after being released, while law enforcement said they needed to conduct additional investigative follow-up on the case in which Bagley fled to Houston. An investigation into Bagley began September 12th of last year when Salt Lake City police responded to reports of a shooting. Upon arrival, police said they found 27-year-old Allen with a gunshot wound. Medical personnel reportedly transported Allen to a nearby hospital where he later died. While conducting an investigation of the shooting, Salt Lake officers said they learned Allen, otherwise known as Ouncy Mitchell, was previously involved in an on-again, off-again domestic relationship with Bagley. Police reported that Allen had been staying at Bagley's apartment prior to the shooting, and that he went back to pick up equipment worth about $10,000. Sometime after Allen's arrival, Salt Lake police say that Bagley fired multiple rounds from a handgun because the police believe she was upset with Allen for taking interest on her friends. According to court documents, Bagley, who dispatched 911 to the scene, told the operator, "I'm shooting," and that she had run out of bullets. Tyson Degenhardt's 19 points helped Boise State defeat Utah State 82-59. Degenhardt had 10 rebounds for the Broncos. Max Rice scored 14 points and added 5 rebounds and 5 assists. The Aggies were led in scoring by Taylor Funk, who finished with 14 points. KVNU News Time is 5:10. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
Breaking news and stimulating talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
It's the January closeout and clean out time at UNI Furniture with lots of really good value store-wide. Pick out a chair, lift chairs, accent chairs, rocker recliners. Choose options like power or manual, fabric or leather, chairs with lumbar support and heat. They've also picked up lots of Maloof products at closeout prices. A queen hybrid mattress is $489, normally twice that. Queen headboards less than $100, and while they last, queen adjustable bases $199. For 93 years, a family-owned business where you'll like their honest approach. There's always a better buy at UNI Furniture, downtown Logan.
Reach the Sheriff's Department Civil Processing Division. Please hold where call is transferred to Sergeant David Chapman. Deputy McCoy.
This is Sheriff Chad Jensen. Fraudulent phone calls similar to this one have been received by many citizens in Cache County. The most common scams are asking for payment over the phone because of a lawsuit, civil bench warrant, or to post bail for a family member who has supposedly been arrested. They ask for payment in form of prepaid cards, gift cards, or money transfers, and if you do not pay, they threaten to arrest you. The Sheriff's Office does not take payment or ask for personal information over the phone. These types of scams often use internet phone numbers which are nearly impossible to track. If you receive a phone call of this nature, do not give out any personal information and hang up. Be cautious about the information you give out over the phone to make sure you are not the next victim of a scam.
Welcome back to KVN News for the people. 5:12 in the afternoon, and it is still kind of light outside. Also, what's the temperature out there, Bill?
It is 31.
Not bad. Just a little teaser for warmer weather, but don't get used to it. Kicking things off here this hour with a very special guest because, as you've heard me say a few times, and as we just discussed with Chief Deputy of the Utah State Senate, Mark Thomas, the legislative session is just around the corner. You heard at the end of last hour many ways you can follow along, get involved. You heard some tips on how to and how not to reach out to your state senator or state house representative. Be respectful in those emails. You're much more likely to get a response or even have it read because, no brainer here, they're human beings just like the rest of us. That's the whole point of a citizen legislature, in fact. Joining us right now, a member of that citizen legislature representing the largest Senate district here in northern Utah and Cache Valley proper. We have with us State Senator Chris Wilson for a little legislative preview. And Senator Wilson, appreciate taking the time for this today. I know, not every bill is out and not every bill will be out for some weeks now, but we do have a sense of what some priorities are from legislative leaders, Senate leaders, and others. And then, of course, you'll have your own bills that you're working on. But I wanted to start off with this because I was just clicking through your official Senate page, Senator, and who did you make angry to get yourself on these committees? You're going to be one of the busiest people in the session.
It is going to be a crazy session. Yes, I don't know if I did something wrong or if I've done something right. I can't quite figure it out yet. But it's going to be a busy session, and not only that, you throw in the bills that we're going to be working on, some appropriations for the district that are very important, and there on that they don't even talk about. I don't know if they showed the broadband commission that I was a Senate chair of. It's been
that's right.
Quite time consuming, but also they just recently asked if I'd be on a the Great Salt Lake Caucus Working Group, which was a great honor. That's going to be kind of a smaller working group to really work through policies. I've been asked to be on the Outdoor Recreation Caucus, and then of course I've been on the Clean Air Caucus for a couple years. So yeah, it's going to be busy, but a lot of important issues and things that we're going to try and repair in the state of Utah, and try and be efficient and very effective with the taxpayer money, and make sure that we're managing the revenue wisely.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it's going to be busy. It's going to be crazy, and I'm down here in Salt Lake most of this week, and tomorrow I've got meetings for broadband and also meetings with infrastructure and general government. The Senate, I'm Senate chair of that, and boy, we're talking about going through and looking at how to properly spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars in the IGG committee. So it should be fun, exciting.
The challenge there as well is this: you have all this money coming through this federal bill that was passed, and you have to decide how to best invest that, right? And you have a very limited amount of time to decide that. That's the committee that stood out to me. You've got the Higher Education Appropriations Committee and the Senate Revenue and Taxation Committee. They're busy enough right there. But that Infrastructure and General Government Appropriations Subcommittee, you have to take this money. So the federal government is saying you will spend this, and the state has to then take that and say, how can we invest this best long term? You can't just throw it at whatever. Walk us through that a little bit if you can. How do you determine something that's probably constantly moving and fluid, right?
Yeah, and the other thing is you have guidelines that usually that the Treasury Department sends out, and you're trying to constantly read what they mean by their guidelines. Usually their guidelines are many pages long.
Sure.
And we do the best we can, and we try and look at projects like you mentioned. They're generational projects that we're going to try and spend wisely going forward to future generations. And so it's something I really enjoy, the budget aspect, appropriations part of it, and infrastructure general government is a subcommittee that's been a real pleasure being the Senate chair, and I really enjoyed it. We also work on the UDOT budget. We're over the UDOT budget, so there's some UDOT expenditure and projects that we've been looking at, and debt service. But yeah, a lot of the federal money. There's been a lot of federal money, and we're still. I've been very much involved with the Broadband Commission, the IIJA federal funding, in a number of different buckets, and still working on trying to get our fair, or in my opinion, unfair amount of federal funds to make sure we connect the state of Utah. Very, very important for future economic development, especially in the Cache County. We got a lot of areas that are unserved and underserved areas that we need to try and connect for health care purposes, for education purposes, agriculture. A lot of things we need to would help us if we can connect our valley. So that's something that's taken a lot of time and effort, but that's mainly part of that federal stimulus money that is coming to the state. And I don't agree with it. Obviously, some of the excess spending is why we've got some inflation issues, but it's already been spent, if you will. Yeah. And we, as the state of Utah, I feel obviously obligation to do everything I can to try and make sure we get the funds that we need for the state of Utah and the state and my district, which includes, of course, Cache County, most of Cache County, and Rich County.
Sure.
Some big needs.
That's you mentioned the Broadband Advisory Committee. For those who haven't been following this closely, the governor, two governors now have set this as an agenda item to get broadband out to some areas where it isn't already, and better connect our state. The governor has also said I think 30% of the state's workforce should be working remotely over the next few years, so that for example, someone in Rich County can actually work for the state. whereas previously you had to live in at least Davis or Salt Lake County to do so. This is a big deal. But last session, the 2022 session, Senator, you helped create this advisory committee, and then they said, well, good luck, you're on it. And your district is such a perfect example of the challenge, right? You have Cache County, where broadband is widely available, and then in your district you also have Rich County, where the opposite is the case, right?
Yeah, and we still have some areas out in Clarkston, Cornish, parts of Lewiston that are unserved. We even have, you start looking at the map, and we have red dots, which is unserved and real underserved all throughout the county. It's kind of amazing, but you're right. Rich County has some real challenges. We want to make sure that people, if we can try and relieve some of the pressure off the Wasatch Front and make sure that people, in Clarkston, some of these smaller communities have the opportunity to join the workforce who would like to. And, maybe supplement their income, help. We know how inflation has affected our families and trying to put food on the table. Pay rent and pay mortgages. We want to give them opportunity that if they have the strong enough connection, then they can maybe join the workforce and work from home. So I think it's vitally important. And being the Senate chair of that broadband commission was really very, very, very lucky to be able to get that. Senate President was very good to me, giving me that, and we set it up. And we've already been working hard, and there could be up to we're guaranteed $100 million, and we're hoping that if we do our job right, we have some great people in the Broadband Commission. Rebecca Dilge and her staff has done a tremendous job. But we're thinking, and I don't want to, cause some issues, but we could be $300 to $400 million possibility of bringing to the state of Utah. So it's a big deal and something that we need to make sure we get it right.
And again, if the state doesn't decide how it's, the money's going to be spent either way. So if the state doesn't help decide where that money goes, then it just goes wherever. I'm excited to see these things play out. Some, as you said, some long unmet needs there. A couple of weeks ago, before the holiday, I believe, or maybe it was just last week, and my memory's bad, but Senate leadership and House leadership put out their list of priorities, the bills that basically will pass because the Senate president and the Speaker of the House say these are important to us. But each lawmaker gets to do the same thing, right? You get to say, these are my priority bills. These are the things that and of course, in your position, working on these important committees, developing a base budget for infrastructure and general government operations and all of that, much of your time will go there. But do you have a list of your own priorities, or even is there a certain issue another lawmaker's bringing up that you want to make sure to put a stop to?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. And I want to mention one other thing. Another working group I've been working on is the Rev and Tax Working Group, mainly the Republican senators from the Rev and Tax Committee, has been working on the tax structure, income tax, sales tax, property taxes. We've been meeting a number of times trying to look into that. So I want to mention that also. But, yeah, the bills, I've currently, trying to remember, I've probably got somewhere around 10, 11 bills that I'll be working on and priorities. I'm still working a little bit on the child exploitation. I passed that bill last session. We've still got another bill that we're working on with the Attorney General's office. Working on some, if you've heard of the big three-letter word, it's ESG or three-letter. I've got a few bills working on environmental social governance. That's been a hot topic that you probably heard about.
This is where
working on
these ratings companies are factoring in new metrics, and the state's concerned that could unfairly ding Utah, right?
Yeah, and it could cause some problems for some of our energy companies, firearm companies, and even some agricultural companies that we think really what we're trying to do is eliminate discrimination in all forms. And that really is what a little bit of pushback, and it's a problem in the country. But I think a lot of people are aware of it. Our Attorney General, our state treasurer, and our governor have all talked about it, and it's kind of pushed back on these kind of policies that are coming out of Washington. They're not policies that have gone through the legislative process. Most of them are administrative-wise, and something that the SEC is pushing. And so you're going to see a number of bills on ESG. I happen to have a couple plus a resolution that the Senate asked me if I've been working on since about July. So we'll have a little more information about that, in the next week or two. Still drafting that legislation. But one thing that I'm really proud of, we're doing the Transportation Infrastructure Amendments. Been working on a plan. It was in the governor's budget, working with Neil Abercrombie and the Aspire electrification up at Utah State. But we're trying to consolidate the electrification efforts for the state. You've got electrified aircraft, you've got electrified planes, drones, you've got electrified trains, big semis, and, of course, passenger car and trucks. And we don't have the base load yet for what we're going to need in the future. So that's something that I'm going to run a bill and ask for appropriation matching what the governor's budget was of $2.1 million. And Neil Abercrombie's been very helpful. Now, that's a big deal. There are literally hundreds of millions of dollars, again, in federal funding for the states. And we are leading, believe it or not, the little old state of Utah and across the country in electrification. We've got some states like Michigan that are coming after us and trying to bump us off the top of the hill. But we think this will help us consolidate, come up with a long-term plan. So we're ready when those federal funds come available. Like I said, here again, they're already spent, and we just want to make sure we get our fair share as we look at resources going forward with the electrification plan. Really excited about that. That's something that we've got the leadership on board. Again, the governor felt strong enough to put it in his budget. And really, Aspire is an organization up at Utah State University, and they literally are leading the country in many in the efforts for electrification in a lot of areas. So very, very pleased, and hopefully we can get that passed. That's going to be a great thing for the state.
Always proud when Utah State University can influence things. There's some great stuff coming out of Aspire and USU on that. That could be, game changers. This is going to be a big session. There's going to be so much going on when it comes to, the anticipated revenue surplus, the federal money that needs to be spent, of course. You've mentioned quite a few things you'll be working on. I'm really glad to hear you're going to be on that Great Salt Lake caucus because I know there's some concern here in Cache Valley that if the northern part of the state doesn't have a large enough voice, we might get forgotten in some of this. I know members of our Water Conservancy District are keeping a close eye on that. Do you feel are we making headway in that arena? I know this isn't a problem that's going to be fixed in a legislative session or two, right? But are we headed the right direction?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a top priority. Speaker Wilson's talked about it. President Adams. We spent hundreds of millions of dollars last session. The two top appropriations, I think, are going to be for transportation and water, and a big part of that's going to be conservation and the Great Salt Lake. But yeah, they just asked me this week. I was very, very thrilled for that opportunity. And Casey Snyder's on that committee along with Scott Sandel. So we've got some real representation on that up here in the northern part of the state. And so I'm very, very pleased to have that opportunity. We're going to have our first a meeting this week to talk about legislation during the session. So I'm excited about that because it's a big part. And we have water needs in the northern part, and also, Bear Lake's a big part of that, and sure. I've been working really hard on Bear Lake. I've even working on an appropriation to do a study on Bear Lake. I mean, we look at the amount of money we put on the Great Salt Lake and Utah Lake, and I'm going, gosh, the crown jewel of the state is Bear Lake, and we need to make sure that we can study it, preserve it, make sure we have the data necessary that we don't run into another problem like we have with the Great Salt Lake. So I'm working on that with the I think it's the Land, Water, and Air Institution, and Brian Steed has been helping with that. So excited about that also. But it's a big deal for our valley and my district, and really, really pleased for that opportunity.
This is This is a great window into the upcoming session because it really kind of draws that picture for me, for our listeners, how important this is. And as you heard in the interview previous to Senator Wilson's time here today with Mark Thomas, Chief Deputy of the Senate, there are many ways you can be a part of this. You can watch everything live or listen to everything live. You can listen to it or watch it after the fact. You can find them on social media. You can engage with your state lawmakers by phone, by email. Again, be respectful. They're human beings like us. That's the whole point of a citizen legislature. So if your email begins, "Dear Knothead," well, what would you do with that email? You're going to delete it, right?
Well, I'll probably know that's from one of my family members, but no, most people are very respectful. I will like to mention one thing. I send out a newsletter every week during the session. I just sent out a survey where I've got about 5,500 people. I sent a survey out. So please, to your listeners, if they'd like to be part of that survey and like to have my newsletter come out it's by email, please send me an email to cwilson@le.utah.gov. And, I send out a lot of information, get a lot of good feedback, and try and let you know what's going on and keep you up to date as much as possible. So cwilson@le.utah.gov, and I'll put you on my newsletter list and try and get you that survey one out today. We've got about 13, 14 items that are really, I think, vital for the state of Utah, especially for my district, and love to have the feedback on topics and what your thoughts are of solutions for some of these difficult problems that we're experiencing. So.
Absolutely, and an opportunity, invitation and opportunity there for everyone in the district, right from a state lawmaker's mouth. Please offer some feedback. Many people don't think this matters, but it very much does here in Utah. And it's again, not something that happens in every state. We have one of the most accessible legislatures, I say, in the country, though I've not visited with lawmakers in every state. A lot of them in the West I have. Take advantage of that and reach out to Senator Wilson if you're listening here in Cache Valley, or if you're listening over in Box Elder, Senator Sandel. You can find your state representatives, House and Senate, by the way, at le.utah.gov. Easily locate them there, contact information and more. See which bills they're working on, what committees they sit on. It's a great resource. Also, senate.utah.gov. I've linked to that on our Facebook page for Senator Wilson's specific page. And Senator Wilson, appreciate taking so much time for us today. I always ask for a certain amount, and I always take more than I've asked for, so appreciate being gracious with that. And hopefully we get a chance to check in again soon.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, Jason, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll do my best to try and keep you up to date. We still didn't even cover a lot of the appropriations and things, but there's a lot to talk about, so I appreciate the opportunity to keep people informed, and thanks for all you do. And looking forward to the session, and we'll do what we can to get back and keep my constituents informed.
Absolutely, and glad you're there as a voice for Cache Valley. For listeners, again, a lot of these topics and decisions, not intentionally, but if our lawmakers aren't there representing Cache Valley, it's easy for Cache Valley to be forgotten. We've seen that happen with certain transportation issues in the recent past. This Great Salt Lake, a noble attempt to do something really important and critical with saving the Great Salt Lake, but Cache Valley needs a voice there. That's what our lawmakers are for. That's the role they're playing. So, Senator Wilson, appreciate that you're there doing that. And for our listeners, appreciate that you tune in. Please, follow along, le.utah.gov, senate.utah.gov. I've linked to everything on our Facebook page. And our guest, again, has been State Senator Chris Wilson. Senator Wilson, again, thank you for your time for KVNU today.
You bet. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Oh, our pleasure. And for our listeners, please stay tuned. More For the People after the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 5:34, and the news is brought to you by Mount Logan Laundry. How is it that in Utah, with the lowest rate of smoking in the nation, lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death in the state? The answer could be radon, which is a naturally occurring radioactive gas that has become known as a slow, silent killer. It is tasteless, odorless, and invisible to the naked eye. To help protect Utah residents from the health impacts of radon, and because January is National Radon Action Month, the Utah Department of Environmental Quality is giving away a limited number of free test kits at radon.utah.gov. Homes tested for radon that exceed 4 picocuries are unsafe for human. Picocuries are a trillionth of a curie, the unit used to measure radiation. The average radon level of tested homes in Utah is 5.3 picocuries. 1 in 3 Utah homes tested have dangerous levels of radon. The highest recorded radon level in Utah is a home in Beaver at 664. The Utah Supreme Court will hear a lawsuit over the state's congressional redistricting process. In an order issued Friday, Associate Chief Justice John Pierce granted the Utah State Legislature's request for an interlocutory appeal that moves the litigation before the state's top court for now. Interlocutory appeals are rarely granted. Lawyers for the legislature were appealing decisions by a lower court judge who has so far rejected their request to dismiss the lawsuit. A group of plaintiffs, including the League of Women Voters of Utah and Mormon Women for Ethical Government, have sued, alleging the congressional district map passed by the legislature was illegal. It was illegal gerrymandering. And several weekend search and rescue operations have authorities across Utah urging preparedness. A Unified Fire spokesman said the wreck happened near Donut Falls and the man was almost to the top of the mountain. They received a call about the incident Sunday around 12:30 p.m. Crews said they got the man off the mountain with just a couple hours of daylight left. Between windy conditions, the snow, and the location of the injured skier, team said it was pretty difficult getting to him. Hikers, snowmobilers, and helicopters were deployed. Skiers in the canyon at Solitude Mountain Resort said they could see the helicopters in the air and knew immediately someone was in serious trouble. In addition to Unified Fire, rescue teams included a number of agencies, including Wasatch Backcountry Search and Rescue and Salt Lake County Search and Rescue. Additionally, the skier and his friend both had their phone batteries die on the mountain, so they were unable to call for help. However, a skier came across the pair and was able to make that call for them. KBNU News Time is 5:37.
The colder weather is here. Are your quilts and blankets looking dingy? Is your winter coat or jacket dirty enough to stand in the corner just by itself? Well, go to Mount Logan Laundry. It'll take no time at all to freshen up everything. They have the 55 and 80-pound washers, the biggest around, and great big dryers, too, and it costs a whole lot less than dry cleaning. Free Wi-Fi and drop-off service. Mount Logan Laundry really is the cleanest spot in town, on the corner of 5th East, 9th North in Logan, or in Brigham at 1st East, 7th South. Mount Logan Laundry.
KBNU weather tonight, snow and a chance of rain as well. Snow accumulation expected to be around 1 inch. Overnight low close to 30 degrees. And then snow with a chance of rain in the morning, then rain likely in the afternoon tomorrow. Could see another inch of snow during the morning hours on Tuesday. High temperature in the upper 30s. Rain in the evening Tuesday night. Rain and snow likely after midnight. And then a 40% chance of snow in the morning on Wednesday. It's been to 32. It's 32 degrees right now at KBNU. The January clearance continues at U&I Furniture. Lots of closeouts and really good values store-wide. Pick out a chair. They have a big selection of lift chairs, accent chairs, rocker recliners. For over 90 years, there's always a better buy at U&I. Downtown Logan, 28 West, 1st North. For more details on these and other stories, visit CashValleyDaily.com.
It's never too late or too cold to get rid of that old vehicle. Now is the time to earn extra cash by calling DD Auto and Salvage. Let them pay you for that junk vehicle. DD Auto and Salvage makes it so easy and fast to get rid of your junker vehicles by paying you the most money possible. Pickup is available. If you have metal, DD Auto and Salvage in Logan wants to pay you today. Call 787-1204.
That's 787-1204 today.
See store for details.
Hey, so what's a great way to spread awareness that driving high is illegal everywhere? A catchy song, of course.
You can run, but you can't drive high. You can run, but you can't drive high.
Friendly reminder, don't drive high. If you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Do you know a champion in our community? Nominate them for the KVNU Above and Beyond Salute. Every Friday morning at 8:30, we'll spotlight a firefighter, law enforcement officer, healthcare worker, or other deserving individual and give them a $40 gift card to Firehouse Subs. Submit your nominations for the Above and Beyond Salute by visiting kvnutalk.com. Help us recognize the champions in our communities. The Above and Beyond Salute, sponsored by Firehouse Subs on News Talk KVNU, the voice of Northern Utah.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Quite a show today. We're going to have plenty of legislative news to talk about here on the show, and as is tradition, working with Senate staff and hopefully House staff. Someone asked me about this once. Why have you been able to get more access to state senators through the years with Senate spotlights on a regular basis through the session and more than House members? Well, there's two answers. Since Becky Lockhart was Speaker, the House has not been quite as accessible as the Senate. There's not a nicer way to put that, though some are going to take issues if they're listening. I don't blame our lawmakers in the House for this at all. They're very accessible, but House leadership under the last two Speakers of the House, not as interested in engaging with the public, at least on the radio, as the Senate has been. And kudos to the Senate for realizing the importance of that, getting word out to actual taxpayers. Hope the House remembers the importance of that sometime soon. The second reason is there's a bazillion of them. So it's not physically possible to do what we do with the state Senate, which is just grab one every Tuesday and Thursday and put them on the air. In the House, that would not work. So, those are the two reasons you hear more about the Senate here on the show than the House. But we'll keep an eye on both, believe me. And by the way, the Senate does a daily media briefing. The House Speaker does it occasionally, usually when he has something he wants to promote. So just two very different bodies there as far as their approach to public access. And if you want to complain about that, I highly recommend it. If you'd like to write to the Speaker of the House, feel free to do so. We didn't get to this at the start of the show because we began the show with special guests from the North Logan Library. I still want to include it because there were some things in the collection today that I just think were, things that shouldn't be... things that shouldn't be forgotten or avoided. So here it is, a bit late, your headlines with smooth jazz. This day in history. And I'll just jump right to it. This is the whole reason I couldn't let the show go without headlines of smooth jazz today, Bill. This day, January 9th, in 1793, was the first ever balloon flight.
Really?
Now, when I first read this from Smithsonian's Today in History, I thought it said balloon fight. And I thought, well, I
haven't heard of too many balloon fights.
Got to know more about that. But yeah.
Sounds like a whole lot of popping going on.
That's right. Disappointingly, I'm kidding because it's amazing. The first ever balloon flight. This was the first time a basket was attached to a balloon with special heated gases inside that actually took a human being up in the air, and they were able to control it. Now, there had been accidental balloon flights previous to this, but this was the first controlled, successfully launched and landed balloon flight. It was 1793, January 9th. Yeah, so quite a while ago.
I didn't know it went back to the late 1700s.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
That's also this day in history, in 1951. Now, the United Nations actually began in 1946. History buffs will know. But in 1951, on January 9th, 1951, the United Nations opened its official Manhattan location, which has become one of the central hubs of the United Nations operations for global United Nations work. And finally, this day in 1788, Connecticut became a state. Keeping you up on this. Popular celebrity birthdays today, January 9th, Richard Nixon, Bob Denver. A lot of people aren't going to remember
Gilligan.
who that is, but yeah, that's Gilligan. He was born in 1935, January 9th. Joan Baez and Jimmy.
And I guess Gilligan's wife, her name is Dreama.
Really?
Denver, but she still operates his website.
Still does it?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
And I guess they have an online music box, Little Buddy Radio or something.
Really?
That you can get online.
I have to check that out. It would be Bob Denver's birthday. Actor from Gilligan's Island. Joan Baez, Jimmy Page, I mentioned. And, Kate Middleton, if you're a British royalty fan. Lego news. The Danish company in 2023 is getting into fine art. I'm not kidding. And botanicals, if you're familiar with what that is, when it comes to home decoration. Lego is launching a new set of the classic building blocks in 2023 that will actually allow you to create, things you might see on Etsy or Pinterest, wall hanging style floral decorations and more, but also recreations of famous pieces of fine art. I don't know how this is going to go because the top-selling items for Lego so far remain Star Wars and Harry Potter model kits, but the current CEO, Niels Christensen, said that this is one of the broadest new item lineups we've ever had in the history of the country. From preschool to adults who appreciate fine art, Lego is going to be trial ballooning a lot of new things this year to expand our portfolio and keep things super strong. Christensen said, I think that we've made sure to tap into very different passion points, and you'll be able to buy everything from a Formula One race car kit to the Mona Lisa in Lego form, should you choose to. All those items coming this year. And check out, I've posted a link to this, but what they're calling the Grow Closer Botanical Lego Collection. It's an actual, tabletop wildflower bouquet. And also a dried flower centerpiece you might see on a Thanksgiving table. But it's Lego.
That is cool.
It's just really cool to see. Here in Cache Valley, an event that veterans are going to want to know about. Also, if you know a veteran, you're going to want to tell them about. This is tomorrow. Details on this at CacheValleyDaily.com. But tomorrow, from 8 a.m. to noon, the Cache Valley Veterans Association is going to be hosting a Veterans Benefit Fair. One of the things that the Veterans Association first discovered, and one of the reasons that it was brought into existence, is that they would find again and again and again, Executive Director Phil Redlinger has told us multiple times here on the show in interviews, that the resources are there to help veterans, and oftentimes, more often than not, sadly, veterans don't know that. They don't know that they have certain services available to them as vets that could really improve their lives, from vocational rehabilitation and employment services to survivor benefits and non-service connected pension benefits, just to give a few of examples. So, founded in 2021, the Dan Gillenskog Veterans Resource Center is hosting a Veterans Benefit and Claims Fair for veterans to get to know the resources available for them. That's tomorrow, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Cache Valley Veterans Association, which is really a one-of-a-kind resource located at 1760 North, 200 East, Suite 100 in North Logan. Full story on that at CacheValleyDaily.com. And finally, a story to leave everyone with that is going to be the opposite of relaxed. So I really hope the smooth jazz does its job here. Your cell phone is the most diseased and dirty thing in your average day. Period. I'm not going to list it here for the sake of everyone's appetite, being so close to dinner time at the end of the show here. But I will
usually lick the face of my cell phone. No, not really.
I would definitely advise against it. I knew cell phones weren't great. Computer keyboards also not great. But you should be sanitizing your phone, which, by the way, never spray a cleaning solution of any kind directly on your phone. But a little soap and warm water used carefully so as not to actually wet the device.
You don't want water in your device.
Don't dip it. But, a damp rag with a little soap solution on it and then wiped off with a dry rag. You're going to want to do that. Also, sanitizing, you can do it with steam, but you want to be careful with that, too, with electronics in general. But I'll post this on our Facebook page, an entire list from a recent study done of cell phones. Well, let me just tell you this. Bacteria grows really well between about 40 degrees and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And anything that gets touched a lot, in addition to other surfaces throughout the day, collects a lot of it. The stuff they found on 80% of the cell phones they looked at here in Utah, viruses, bacteria, fungus... On 80% of the phones that were inspected, some form of fungi was growing.
And that's not fun.
Yeah.
Guys.
This is obviously visible soil or debris we're going to see. Yeah. But pathogens, disease-causing microorganisms, bacteria that at very least could give you a bad case of diarrhea, viruses, and again, fungus.
And what do most
growing on a cell phone?
And what do most people do while they're eating? A lot of times they look at their cell phone.
That's right.
They're touching the screen, and they grab some more food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting dirtier and dirtier. Ways you can keep your cell phone cleaner. This is going to be hard for a lot of people. Don't use it in the bathroom, the kitchen, commercial or residential. Keep it away from the dining table, as Bill mentioned. Don't put it on the table you're eating. Remember, when you go to a restaurant, others have probably put their phone on the table, so maybe wipe it down a little bit before your food comes. Even if the staff has already done so, I'm going to start doing that from now on, now that I've seen what's on it. Fungus on 80% of the phones looked at here in Utah. Don't take your phone in the doctor's office. That's good advice. And anywhere else where bacterial exposure or viral exposure is going to be high, just leave your cell phone in the car. That's one way to keep it clean. Sanitizing, of course, which you want to do carefully. You don't want to wet the device, but you also don't want to not sanitize it. Trust me on this. Your cell phone can make you very sick, is the title of the article on some research done right here in Utah looking at random cell phones and what they found on them. I'll just say it one more time. Fungus growing on 80% of the phones inspected. That's horrible. Clean your phones and think more about where your phone has been before you put it down next to a plate of food or on a table someone else is going to be using after you. And if you want tips on how to sanitize your phone, I've linked to some safe ways to sanitize an electronic device on our Facebook page. You can easily Google that information. But, yeah, one last time, fungus. 80% of the phones inspected, bacteria, viruses, and fungus growing on the phone. We'll be back right after this.
Are you moving into a new home? You want to breathe your own dirt, not somebody else's. You should have your air ducts cleaned by the Duct Hunter to get rid of old dust, pet hair, and a variety of other people's dirt. Call today to get on the schedule for a free consultation. Call the Duct Hunter at 770-4813.
We are the Duct Hunter. Breathe better, save money, protect your home. We are the Duct Hunter.
Where do you turn for help when you have ear, nose, or throat issues? Doctors Kaiser or Wilson at Intermountain Healthcare, Budge Clinic ENT are trusted names throughout Cache Valley. Their 5-star reviews tell the story. One person wrote, Dr. Wilson answered all of my questions and was very thorough. Another person wrote, Dr. Wilson took time to ask a lot of questions and figure out what was going on. For more information about Doctors Kaiser or Wilson, search Budge Clinic ENT on the web. Doctors Kaiser and Wilson provide local care with Intermountain expertise.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. Some say the votes to get Kevin McCarthy elected House Speaker were the easy ones for Republicans. Here are the hard ones that await. Also, in a strange way, the meltdown at Southwest Airlines over Christmas week could actually be good for travelers, and the bad money habits you need to drop in this new year. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM. Your station for news and talk.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. A few listeners chiming in here. We've talked a bit with Senator Wilson and with Chief Deputy of the Senate, Mark Thomas, before him about following the legislative session. And a listener writes and says, you know, what do you recommend? You've followed the legislative session every year on the show. What do you recommend? It depends on what your goals are. If you want to interact with lawmakers on a specific issue, I recommend email, and I recommend being respectful. And I do not recommend form emails. I've never worked with a state senator or state house representative officially, but I've asked for and received screenshots of their inboxes before just to get an idea. And, you know, those form letters, Mr. Thomas mentioned this, that they aren't very effective. Those form letters that you see, parties do this. Both major political parties and even minor political parties do this. Action campaigns do it. Nonprofits occasionally do it. What they're actually doing when they send you that request to put your name on a form email is they're collecting your information for their own future communications. Now, that's not bad. Maybe it's an organization like the ACLU or a local nonprofit like CAPSA or something like that, and maybe you want to be on their mail list so you get more information about that organization. So I'm not criticizing that, but that's more what they're interested in. This is how nonprofits build their network, and a lot of nonprofits wouldn't survive without building their network in that way. But they also say that they're going to, hundreds and thousands of emails they'll be forwarding on to your state senator or your federal representatives. The problem is that they actually do that. And so what happens is the staff of that state representative or even federal delegate, they quickly create a filter. And most advanced email systems allow this. They create a filter, and all of those form emails, the only thing original in each one is the person's name, first name only, go into a folder, and that's pretty much the end of it. So if your goal is to communicate with the legislature, one, reach out to your lawmakers when possible. If it's a broader issue than that, you can reach out to staff whose contact information might be made available, not often, but some staff members, their contact information is available, or the Speaker of the House or the Senate President. The governor also, even though he's not a part of the legislature, the governor is the by design in the Constitution, offset to the legislature. So if there's an issue that's really a thorn in your side, sending that information to the governor to give the governor an idea of how many Utahns, because remember, the governor represents the entire state. So contacting the governor's office, they do collect, and keep a list of issues that a majority of taxpayers from various parts of the state are opposed to. And they will weigh in with that specific lawmaker and say, hey, I know you're all gung-ho about this. Your district might be gung-ho of this, but expect vouchers, for example. A lot of emails of support are going to go to the handful of Utah County lawmakers who just can't let the school voucher thing go. The governor's office will be the one to step in and say, you ought to hear what we're hearing from every county that's not Utah County. They hate them. That's a good example. As far as just following the session, I recommend social media. A lot of lawmakers most are on Facebook. A lot of them are on Twitter. A lot of them are on Instagram, and that's a good way to keep up. And then just le.utah.gov. They live stream everything. If you miss it while it happens live, it's archived, video and audio after the fact. You can search by bill title or even keyword for a bill or a lawmaker's name. It's a really useful resource. So those are my tips for the session. It kicks off 1 week